Okay, this here video, as you can see by the title page, is bookkeeping versus accounting and a bit of history. And the reason why I'm sticking this in, and hopefully it will be a relatively quick one, video, is because a lot of people have a misconception about what bookkeeping is and about what accounting is. I know I did. Um, and the reason for this is because when you have a set of books, right, for XYZ company, right? You basically have a bookkeeper and you or bookkeepers and you have your accountant or accountants, right? Now, here's the thing, right? Both use the same books of accounting for that particular business. So therefore, they both have to be able to speak the same language. I mean, we're talking about debits, credits, an asset, liabilities, equity, revenues, expenses, balance sheets, income statements. You use the same terminology, the same language, because we're talking about the same set of books. But the reality of it is bookkeepers. I mean, sometimes you'll see ads in the paper for accountants, and really what they're looking for is just a bookkeeper. Okay. You'll have some bookkeepers, talking like they're accountants when all they really are is bookkeepers. There's a very vast difference between the bookkeeper and the accountant. I mean, the bookkeeper does data entry, all right, into the books, right? The accountant does everything else, and you're really not considered an accountant unless you have your bachelor's degree in accounting, right? An associate's degree does not make you an accountant, right? You need to have your bachelor's degree to be an accountant. Um, when the bookkeeper enters the data into the books, okay, it's up to the accountant to use all of the higher level thinking in order to determine what the book should actually look like, to be able to do analysis, financial analysis, and all kinds of other things that you do not do when you're a bookkeeper. I mean, that's why you go to school for 4 years to get your bachelor's degree to become an accountant. Okay, so yeah, a bookkeeper, they need to know that language, but they're really not an accountant. Now, accountants should be able to do the jobs of bookkeepers, but let's talk a little bit about history here. Okay, before the use of computers, when an accountant went to school, they would take principles of accounting. I'm just going to make this of accounting. Whoops, CTG. Sorry about that. One, and they would take principles of accounting two, and then they would continue on with their education by taking managerial accounting, and then further on by taking things like intermediate accounting, cost accounting, and all the other higher level of accountings. Now this is pre-computers, okay? And the principles of accounting would be one semester, and principles of accounting two would be another semester. You use the same book, and the book would be about 1,200 pages long. And what that book actually did was it taught you how to become a very, very good bookkeeper. Because in Principles of 1 and 2, you were learning all about, the fundamentals of, accounting, the principles and things like that. And you would also learn how to do all of the data entry and produce your financial statements. But it didn't get into the higher level of thinking and usage that accountants get into that you would learn in other subjects. So anybody who's a bookkeeper who wants to become a much, much better bookkeeper, my suggestion is to go out onto a website like Amazon and search for a used textbook and pick up a Principles of Accounting textbook, relatively cheap, 10, 15, 20 bucks. You don't need to buy one today and pay $150 for it. All you're doing, you save the money, get the less expensive one, and read through it, and it'll help you become a much better bookkeeper. but once you read through them, you're not going to be an accountant. Now, that was, before the advent of the computer, okay? But once the computer came into play, okay, and the powers that be that determine what should be included in the educational system, they're sitting there saying, really, there is a distinction between, the bookkeeper, get blue here, I want to get blue, between the bookkeeper and the accountant. And that's, yeah, the bookkeeper does the data entry and the accountant does everything else. So why should accountants be learning to do data entry as a bookkeeper? It's not part of a part of their skill set. If a business is short a bookkeeper, the accountant, should be able to, do the data entry, but oftentimes the accountant waits until they get a new bookkeeper, and then the new bookkeeper does the data entry. So the educational system basically said, well, why are we teaching, principles 1 and principles 2 when, bookkeepers today are using, software, accounting software packages and things like that in order to do the data entry. And, there became this very, very big distinction between the two. So the principles of accounting 1 and principles of accounting 2 were molded together and are called financial accounting. Okay, and assuming that you're watching these videos because you're in the college curriculum, whether it's a bachelor business management, marketing, finance, or even the accounting curriculum, you are taking financial accounting. Okay, now what has happened here is that they merged the principles 1 and 2 together and made it financial accounting. However, they didn't have you go through everything that you had in principles 1 and 2. As a matter of fact, in the edition of the textbook that we're using right now, there's only the first 3 chapters that cover, basic bookkeeping. That's what you're learning in those first 3 chapters of the current textbook we're using. The previous edition of the textbook that we used, it only had 1 chapter. It basically gave you the fundamentals. It said this is a debit, this is a credit, this is asset, liability, equity, revenue, and expense. And then it just jumped right into teaching you the things that you need to know for financial accounting as an accountant. All that higher level thinking. Now, the problem with that is that let's say you have no experience whatsoever, no knowledge whatsoever, and you go into in the accounting curriculum and you hit financial accounting. Well, you haven't really internalized, from 1 chapter or even 3 chapters, how to keep data in books. So even though you're going to be creating journal entries and you're giving them to a bookkeeper in order to enter it in the system, you kind of really haven't gotten the fundamentals down on how to make journal entries, and how it flows through the books, and what the results are. And that's why I've created these videos on the framework to give a much more overview of what actually happens than what's being presented in that 3 chapters of the financial accounting textbook, or 1 chapter, or however many chapters it is. That financial accounting textbook is going to have 15 or 20 chapters in it, but very few chapters are going to be related to the bookkeeping aspect of it. So just realize that bookkeeping is different from financial accounting. Um, you know, bookkeeping is data entry. Yes, you're learning the same language as the accountants, but the accountants think of take it from a much higher level than the bookkeeper. And unfortunately, when it comes to actually learning, it's like sink or swim in the educational system right now. And when it comes to financial accounting, and a lot of students struggle if they don't have any previous experience or knowledge of accounting, because yeah, it's quick 1-2 chapters, and then you have to actually be using this, but you really don't have that much of experience, and you haven't internalized the things that you need to know. So that'll be the reason why I'm creating the framework videos, and so that you can have a better understanding of what actually is involved in accounting. Okay, and that's it for this video.